Hello everyone, I'm back with another one of those game reviews. This time I'm going to be talking about a game developed and published by Games Incorporated about 5 months ago, and I have subsequently dropped 100 hours into that I have actually played and not AFK farmed quests. We are going to talk about the hunt-style JRPG game Granblue Fantasy Relink. Now the question might be begged why it took me this long to make this video, and the answer would be this very sweaty game has farming. A lot of farming. Most of my time has been off stream for this reason, but I was hell-bent on getting through the end game before writing my thoughts. At this point I'm about halfway through the proud difficulty, and I think I can feel good about it now. The story of the game is pretty mundane. Pick a fantasy game of your choice and you pretty much have all the tropes. You got a motley crew floating around in a ship and inevitably get sucked into saving all the islands in the area from an evil cult hell-bent on summoning a portal to another dimension. They want to do this by draining all the local elemental gods of their power using your female magician they kidnapped. Blah blah, fast forward and you beat baddies with swords. Save your girlfriend who nukes the enemy with summons. Everyone is happy, roll the credits, and you just begin farming forever in the postgame. The characters are alright, nothing too much to hate or even like here. There's a nice touch of each character having a little personal story you can do at your leisure, but it's mostly just kind of fluff. The graphics of the game were quite pretty to look at. It is very much an animated watercolor style visuals that really worked well with the feel of everything. The scope of the world is very Monster Hunter-ish in size, with currently 2 main cities and many of the endgame quest locations used in the campaign and revisited over and over. The campaign was a great trip though, and they also enables the ability to redo the campaign in higher difficulties instead of just quest spamming, so you don't feel the size at all for the most part. The soundtrack was okay. I thought some of the standard tracks were kind of basic but fitting, and some of the bigger boss battle music was really high octane stuff. Everything is voice acted through the game, which was a surprising touch. A+ for that effort. Except the dragon. Duct tape that thing's mouth shut, please and thank you. I swear, if I hear him talk about apples one more time... I played this on a PC with keyboard and mouse, so that would be my perspective on the controls. To hell with inferior controller limitations, so you PS5 players can just flash a minute or two into the future here. Everything was buttery smooth for an action game. I never felt like an attack or dodge even remotely missed a beat on command, which is vital. The worst thing I would note is during multiple boss fights, sometimes there seemed to be a little hitch in a dodge time if something else walked on the screen, but that was pretty rare. Let's actually talk about the fights though, since I have a lot more to talk about there. The premise of the combat is you pick any character to manually control and then flesh out a team of 3 other AI controlled characters. What is really cool is all the characters can be the one you directly control past the campaign, and they play pretty much uniquely from each other while looking like actual beasts at their jobs. These AI will play in a way that will make all but the best players look like chumps, while also having the tactical brains of lemmings. Seriously, they can survive through proud difficulty apocalypses like they are the X-Men's Nightcrawler, in many cases with no defensive stats applied, but try to get them to focus down a boss at 3% life in a multi-enemy scenario, and they will wander off to fight literally anything else. Meanwhile, Urasabi ensures as every attack in the game one-shots you. I'm dead serious about this. The abilities are fun to dodge, but I do gripe about the fact that once you are on maniac level difficulty, everything but the most basic of attack swings feels like it just 100 to zeros you, which just feels meh. When the penalty for any failure at all at any given time is death, it kind of becomes exhausting. There is a reason the meta for the game is cheat death, extra potions, and auto revive mechanics. It is made a little bit more fair in that one death is not the end of the fight, instead having an exhaustion bar of sorts that only fails to fight if you die so much that the bar empties. For the most part, The single boss fights are really fun to get into as you weave around a fight in a very fast-paced combat style. I have a lot of issues with the multi-boss fights though. There are a bunch of visual issues where they throw 2 or 3 bosses together into one fight that are rage-inducing. Even barring some obvious ones, like one boss standing in your face as the second boss throws a one-shot fireball that you can't see through it, there are other issues like one boss turning around and bully pushing your character because there is a collision into an attack you are safe from with no recourse. You can't run under mob legs, you can't often dodge around a hitbox, and mobs will often be in 3 spots around a map throwing attacks with no indicators or ways for you to possibly track them outside of just running to the edge to get them into some kind of viewpoint. God, I can't think of any action game that multi-bosses on screen at the same time is a good time, except for Monster Hunter World, where in a lot of cases you can get them to hit each other or start a one-on-one-on-one. The good news is you're going to learn these attack patterns if you go deep into this game like the back of your hand. This is because you're going to see the same fights a lot. There is an okay diversity of monsters at first, but boy are they reused to death as you go on. The very first boss you fight, seriously, is a Quakedile, a brown alligator with earth attacks. You will see this exact same Quakedile with a couple of extra attacks and at least 6 quests that I can think of a few times in the campaign, and I believe in one of the character's fate stories. They then reskinned it as blue, red, and green for different elements, but with 90% the same movesets with different flavor. Each of these are also in 5 to 6 quests. You then have dragons that follow the same trend, a rock golem, the same griffin, a goblin warrior in several quests, and the campaign bosses of Magali, Galens, and Id, and a few summon bosses from the campaign. It sounds when spoken out loud like a lot, but a game that has this much farming needing to be done, you start craving something more than seeing half of the fights being reskinned bosses that you do over and over again. Now, the disclaimer to this is that they are giving more. This game is currently live service to an extent, with them adding content every few months. No one knows how much precisely they have planned, but they did talk about having at least a year's worth of stuff they wanted to do, with the next one having just come out with some nice game features like a town map and a 3rd new character. For the most part, these additions have been new characters to earn, but they clearly have new raid level bosses as evidence to the patch a few months ago. Now, you can pay for these characters, but you can also farm a lot for them too. They do have a cash shop for skins and some boosting items, so yeah, it's buy once to play forever. So for now, let them make their paychecks on some fairly soft pay to boost shop. I still don't like it, but it's not a complete joke, at least to me. Now, what is causing the massive grinding sessions here that cost countless hours for progression? For that, we can look at the systems. The levels of the character are non-consequential and come by themselves, but the rest, well, that's a different story. Let's go down the list here. We have mastery points, which is the farmable spendable points used to upgrade your character's stats and skills. Sigils, which are gear trinkets of sorts that are vital power sources and can be further farmed into upgrades. Weapon crafting and upgrading, which takes gold and items. And let's not forget, bright stones that you socket into your weapons. I'm kinda winded with that list, but there are several other smaller ones to deal with on the side. I actually have to respect this grind because despite the daunting nature of it all, there is an actual end to it where you could be finished with the grinding. This is not an endless progression, thank God. To help out, Granblue also throws in repeatable quest chains that when completed, give more resources, so doing a randomized quick quest that lands you in an easier mission will still help retain some progression. Oh yes, and there is a squeaky little vendor that stalks you around and trades about 5 other kinds of currency vouchers for various items as well. As far as I've used it, the function seems to be used to alleviate some specific item farming in a bad luck protection format. So if an item you need just won't drop, eventually you can trade for it, which is nice. I do want to include a small notation that this game does have online co-op play options, although sometimes finding players for a specific quest can be daunting, so it's a bit hit and miss on this one. There is not much more to talk about. This game is completely focused on throwing you into fight after fight to upgrade things, and that's what the game is all about, with a splash of stupid story. Really, the game begins after the main game ends. I have to say I really did, and still do, as I'm still pushing through the final endgame chunk, enjoying the game. It's a bit more of a relaxed version of a Monster Hunter style game with less hunting and just more fighting. This is a $60 full price game. Your mileage will vary on the cost per time value, since if you just do the story stuff and quit, it's about 20-ish hours. But if you put in the grinding time for the truly endgame stuff, it really hits into 100 hours plus easy. My personal take on this game is a B to a B plus in its current state. I think if they drop some further content, adding some more unique fights, which they do seem to be doing, this will eventually turn into a solid A, and any fan of a hunting action game needs to check this out, even with a ho-hum story and a few badly tuned fights. It actually feels like kind of a shame that this game did not seem to get quite the attention I feel it should have. And that's it from me in this review. Let me know in the comments how you felt about the grind of this game and if it felt good for you. Check me out on Twitch on Von Dunabel, where I am constantly streaming a variety of different games, and feel free to join my Discord page pinned on the channel. Until my next video, rant, however, whatever you want to call it, dinner's done.